All right, we are back here again. Woohoo! I haven't made a video about comics in a hot second. Anyway, today I will be taking you through the process kind of drawing a comic from storyboard to completion. Because I did these pages in less than 3 hours, like roughly 3 hours in total. Um, in one sitting, because I'm good at fuck you. The thing is that I had storyboards for these already, but I hated them. It was just three big single page spreads, and I didn't like them, so I decided to strip them down and rebuild them. So I went back to what they were fundamentally in the script, and basically just storyboarded them again. In the end, I got three action packed pages that I think I'm really satisfied with. And these pages actually have produced some of my very favorite panels that I've ever made. And it's one of the panels you'll see a little bit later. I don't do one page at a time. I do all three pages at once. So you'll see me do that. Basically, I go from each page and I do each step, and I just do that, and then I do it. So for once, after I did the actual storyboards, I just popped them onto the pages, and then turn the opacity down, and I started the sketch over that. I always start with the background and then go forward. I do the background first, then the characters, and then any sort of text and effects, just because it's easier that way. Um, I do backgrounds in red, characters in blue, and effects and words in pink because it's just a better. They're all very bright colors that they can't be confused for each other. So very nice contrast for them, and of course on different layers so that I can manage each of them separately. For this one, there was a lot less words and a lot more just like battle lines and stuff like that. And I was really happy with a lot of the really big like impact panels I was able to make. Um, I'm not going to explain what's happening in these pages. Just know that this is kind of the end. The we're getting towards the end of the book. So that's what these pages are. Speaking of which, hey, this is my comic, The House on the Hill. If you have not seen it, if you have not read it yet, please go do so. You will see it in the description below. These are pages these are pages 89 to 91 of the comic, so you probably have to go from the very beginning to the very end to see all of the pages and everything that I have done in this comic. This is a new comic series that I'm very proud of currently. I really love the way that the line art turned out. There are a lot of very big lines, very big structures in this. One thing that I did notice about this comic is that none of the backgrounds are really filled with anything, and it's kind of meant to be like that, as sort of like it's very eerie. The house is filled with all of these women that live here, and they do all these rituals, but there's nothing actually in the house. It is just empty because these people don't really live. They kind of just sit there in like this eerie way. But I do put a lot of effort into the lighting, specifically in this scene where we have the very powerful red light of the blood moon coming through the windows and all the nice dark blue shadows melding together into this purple and pink combination in the middle. I love these pages. They're just so pretty. I can't get enough of it. Oh my god. I will say that when I look back at the very beginning of this comic, I see that there's a lot of weaknesses in the art style that I definitely got much more used to, and I feel a lot more comfortable with the art style now. And I think that it looks really pretty now. I love the art style. I love how simple it is. I do blame this art style for me not knowing how to draw hands anymore. But I actually do find that I'm able to get very nice facial expressions despite the style being so simple. Particularly in this big impact panel with Will and Sam. They're very cute. They're very large. They have these very very big eyes, very emotional, and I was able to get it pretty good. There's also these very big like motion panels with Alice doing her thing because I don't know. Um yeah, Alice is very athletic. She's very cute. She's very um aggressive, I guess. Um she's saving her brothers. She can be cool. I know she's like supposed to be 7, but leave me alone. Um, in the end, I felt really confident about the way that it looked. The only thing that I wanted to change at the very end after I finished this session, which is about a 3-hour session, was the fact that some of the panels seemed a little bit too just kind of like underwhelming. So I went back the next day and I added in some hatching to some of the character panels. The ones that were closer, not the ones that are farther away, because I don't add hatching when the characters are farther away because of just, time and clarity. Um, I don't know, in the end I think it looks great. I think it looks fantastic. Um, so if you want to know anything about my process, then here's one thing to know. I use the select tool religiously. You'll see it in some of my other artworks too, where I select everything outside of where I actually need to color in, and then I invert it so that everything at the edge of the line art is what I'm drawing in. So all of the colors are very big and bold, and they're just kind of flat underneath all the details. And then afterwards, I put in all the details. Start putting in just the basic lighting, and then I go from there and just detail it out. And I was really liking this drawing method, especially for these ones, especially for these pages. Especially when it got time to add in the color of their eyes, the big bright green against that red and the blues. Very pretty, very nice, very RGB color scheme of this comic, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. Um, there's also I use black for all of the effects and for these speech bubbles, but I add a sort of very pale gray outline around them to make them pop out against the rest of the drawing so that they don't get muddled, especially when it comes to something as definitely as filled with hatching as these panels are. So it just helps to have something just pop out a bit. And all of the text in these pages is hand drawn. I didn't add any text in with the text tool, not even any of the dialogue that actually is in here. It's all text it's all hand drawn. All text is all hand drawn. Um, there's also the shot with the grate that I think turned out pretty well, being able to see what's happening down below through the grate. And the ceilings are pretty high in this room, so it's pretty high up. So Alice does this fall, and it's very powerful. And I wanted to do a lot of very flowy, very triangular impact frames, especially in the last page. Um, you'll see me adding these outlines to just kind of box in the pages, box in the shape of it. There's a big impact where you see her curve of her action and the rest of the characters. There's this really big curve from top to bottom where it's that sort of triangular um triangular composition where you go from small to large at the bottom. Speaking of composition, let's just go ahead and back up a little bit to storyboarding because that is what I focus on in storyboarding. Notice that I start very small and undetailed before I start doing the sketch. I do most of my storyboarding traditionally. In fact, all of the pages for the House on the Hill were initially storyboarded traditionally because I like the ability to just draw it out and not have to worry about it because I want to focus more on the composition than anything else. So just focusing on the really tiny shapes, focusing on what it looks like from a distance is really important for that. And then establishing all the wide shapes, all of the interesting things, and then eventually, kinking it out and like fixing everything in the sketch phase. Also, after the sketch page would be where I would normally add in the text so that I could change anything afterwards if I needed to. But of course, I didn't add any actual text in here. I just wrote in all of it by hand instead. Also, most of these pages are completely different from what was in the script because of how much I changed it. And the only thing that I did at the very end is that I added a tiny um one of the things that I did at the very end of the first pages before I added in the hatching was I added a little bit more darkness in some pages, especially in that final panel. There's this lighting effect where I add a bit of pink to uh to Alice so that she stands out against the others. Um, Especially in that red background. I didn't want everything to get too muddled together. So in the end, these 3 pages took me about 3 hours, about 2 hours and 50 minutes in total from storyboarding to final. Although technically the storyboarding took about the same amount of time that it would for me to do text. So I'm just gonna say that that's 3 hours from uh, paneling the final for like a rough thing. That means that I was able to complete 1 page in about 1 hour, which means that I am officially back to my initial speed from 9 lives, and hopefully by the end of, well, not by the end of this, but during my stint in the new comic, which will happen once this is over, The Prince and the Merman, I will be able to get my speed up even faster. I'm kind of looking for getting it down to at least 45 minutes per page, if not half an hour. Because if I can get it half an hour, then I'll be golden. I'll be God. I like to be God, guys. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. If you want have any tips about if you want a tip about being fast at drawing, um get good. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Most of what I do is that for one, I draw in pen a lot. In my sketchbook, you see pen sketches everywhere. Most of what I do is in pen. I don't, or a colored pencil. I don't use a lot of erasable material anymore, unless I'm doing a finished illustration, because it is a lot easier for me to do comics and do it faster if my line work is extremely confident. So I just kind of put down a line, and then once it's there, it's permanent. And I will very rarely go back and fix things. Even like you'll see in some of my older pages, actually even in this page, there was a moment where I did have to go back and fix a face, the faces of in that impact frame that I mentioned earlier with Will and Sam, because I had accidentally swapped the position they were in, and I went back and I redrew it from the other way, and I hated the face that went in. I was going to just leave it alone, but it honestly didn't take very long to fix, so I fixed it anyway. But usually you'll see in other pages where I'll just do it and then not fix it afterwards, because it's if it's there, it's permanent. Whatever is there, I want to keep there. I will only ever go back on it if it is just really that bad. And most of my first results, due to all of this design confidence training, will be good no matter what. So I just don't care. I don't really care. It's also good because if you ever want to do like a manga, then every line you put down is permanent. So, get good, really. Also, one thing to note is that it does take a little bit to get used to the style and the character designs. Of course, these pages look drastically different from the pages from the beginning of the comic because I haven't gotten used to the style of the character designs yet. But now they look a lot better, and I'm doing them faster. And that's just kind of something that happens when you do something for a little while. So in order to like prep yourself for a comic, do what I'm gonna do, which is draw the characters in the comic 100 times. Not actually 100 times. Maybe draw them 10 times from different angles so that you get used to every single bit of the character, not just for the turnaround, for muscle memory practice. By the time I was at the end of 9 lives, I did not have to look at any of the character design sheets because I just knew what they looked like. I knew how to draw every character. I didn't need any references anymore. It would just kind of came naturally to me. And I do that here too. I don't need to look at the references anymore. I just need to draw them because it's just easy now. So it's kind of just practice and consistency and pen. Use a pen. Anyway, that's the end of my TED talk.